Welcome back to Easy English, Relaxed English Conversations. I am Lily.
And I am James. What's up, everyone?
James, I am so excited for today. Today's episode is specifically designed for who love real stories, and it is good for intermediate learners who want to expand their real-life vocabulary, communicate well, and feel comfortable joining small talk, which is very important in English-speaking culture, all while learning how to manage their money.
I am really looking forward to this. During our last deep dive, we examined the life of Warren Buffett, and the feedback on that was just, well, it was overwhelming.
Yeah, people really connected with it, right?
Exactly. They connected with the idea that long-term structural habits, rather than just overnight lottery-style luck, are what actually build wealth. But today, we're kind of pivoting, right? We're moving away from a traditional financial icon to someone who is operating at the absolute bleeding edge of modern technology.
We definitely are. We are looking at a huge stack of sources today.
Right. I mean, we've got biographical profiles, his own essays from his personal blog, interviews, and even the corporate history of the companies he's run, all to understand Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI.
Exactly. And the whole mission of our deep dive today is to extract the mechanics of his success, because Sam Altman is undeniably one of the most famous figures on the planet right now. I mean, OpenAI created ChatGPT.
You've completely changed everything.
Yeah, it really did. But what's truly fascinating about the source material we reviewed is that it paints a picture of a man who, well, he didn't just stumble into success. He wasn't born a billionaire.
Right.
He's actually a college dropout who experienced a massive, very public business failure early in his life.
Which is crazy to think about now.
It is. So our goal today is to show how his wealth and his influence are actually the result of highly specific replicable systems. These are mindsets and habits that any of you listening can adapt for your own careers, your language learning, and, your personal finances.
Okay, I love this premise. I really do. But I'm going to push back just a little bit right at the start here.
Okay, go for it.
When we look at someone like Sam Altman, a guy who, grew up in the U.S., got into Stanford University, and is now running the most important AI company in the world, it's very easy to look at that and say, well, of course he's successful.
Right. People think it's just luck.
Exactly. They think he was just in the right place at the right time in Silicon Valley. It can feel like his story is completely out of reach for a normal person who is, say, trying to learn English or start a small side hustle. I mean, is it really fair to say his habits are replicable for us?
That is an excellent challenge, and it's exactly why we need to dig into the how and the why of his life, not just the what.
Okay, I'm listening.
You're completely right that his starting circumstances gave him advantages. We can't replicate the year he was born or the fact that he was geographically near Silicon Valley.
Right, we can't just copy and paste his life.
Exactly. But the decisions he made when faced with failure, his framework for identifying valuable opportunities, and his mathematical approach to risk and reward, those things are completely universal.
Ah, so it's about the software running in his head, not the hardware of his circumstances.
That is a perfect way to put it. Let's start with his early years, because it sets a real foundation for how he views the world. He was born in 1985 in Chicago, and the sources point out one specific anecdote that I love.
Oh, the computer thing, right.
Yes. At just 8 years old, he completely took apart an Apple computer to see how it worked and then used it to teach himself programming.
It's funny you highlight that specific detail. A lot of biographies mention early childhood tech experiments, but I think we often misinterpret what they actually mean.
What do you mean by that?
Well, most 8-year-olds look at a computer and see magic, right? They see a glowing screen that plays games. But taking it apart means he didn't accept the black box.
Black box, right.
Yeah, he wanted to reverse engineer it. He wanted to see the motherboard, the wires, the actual logic boards. That is a fundamental psychological shift. He was looking for the underlying systems.
Yes, absolutely. And that systems thinking mindset is highly applicable to our listeners right now.
How so?
Well, if you're learning English, you can view the language as a confusing, magical black box where native speakers just somehow know what to say. Or you can take it apart like an 8-year-old Sam Altman.
Oh, I like that, taking the language apart.
Exactly. You can look at the syntax, the vocabulary roots, the common sentence structures, and figure out how the machine works.
That makes a lot of sense. So that curiosity obviously helped him out in school.
It did. It naturally led him to excel academically, and he eventually enrolled at Stanford University to study computer science.
Which is huge. Stanford is essentially the epicenter of the tech world.
It is. But here's the critical turning point. At 19 years old, during his second year, he dropped out.
Wait, 19?
Yep, 19. He left one of the most prestigious universities on Earth.
See, this is where the story usually loses me. Because dropping out of Stanford sounds like absolute madness to a regular person.
It sounds crazy, right?
Totally crazy. Stanford is the ultimate safety net. If you graduate from there with a computer science degree, you are essentially guaranteed a six-figure salary for the rest of your life. Leaving that behind requires an intense calculation of opportunity cost.
It really does.
So what was the exact catalyst? I mean, why leave the safety of that environment?
The catalyst was his absolute conviction in an idea he had for a company called Looped. We really need to remember the context of the era here. This was 2005.
Wow, 2005. That's a long time ago in tech years.
Exactly. He saw the potential of mobile phones way before the rest of the world caught on. Looped was an application designed to let people find their friends geographically based on their phone's location.
Okay, so kind of like the nearby features on social media apps today.
Yes, exactly the same concept.
Yep.
But he was building it 5 years before it became the industry standard.
Wait, 2005. The iPhone didn't even come out until 2007. The App Store didn't even exist yet.
Nope, it didn't.
So he was trying to build a mobile social network in an era where most people were still using flip phones with tiny pixelated screens and terrible internet connections.
Yep.
That is incredibly ambitious, but mechanically, it just sounds like a nightmare.
It was a complete nightmare. And that brings us to the reality of his first big venture. We love to tell stories about the college dropout who immediately builds a billion-dollar empire, like Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates.
Right, the classic Silicon Valley myth.
Exactly. But that is not Sam Altman's story. Despite working on Looped for years, pouring his youth, his energy, and his brilliant mind into this project, the company failed to gain the massive traction it needed.
So just didn't work out.
Right. They simply couldn't get enough users. He eventually had to sell the company for essentially the amount of money that was initially invested in it, which in the startup world is considered a major failure.
Wow. Let's just pause and really analyze the psychology of that moment.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because he's in his early 20s, he gave up a Stanford degree, he convinced investors to give him millions of dollars, he convinced his friends to come work for him. And then the market rejects the idea.
And not because he wasn't smart.
Right, probably just because he was too early. And in business, being 5 years too early is often functionally indistinguishable from just being wrong. The infrastructure, like fast 4G internet and widespread smartphones, just wasn't there to support his vision.
It just didn't exist yet.
Most people would be completely crushed by that. I mean, they'd retreat, apologize to their parents, and try to get a quiet, safe job somewhere. How did he process this?
Well, he processed it by completely separating his personal identity from the outcome of the business. And this is the first major habit we are extracting today, treating failure as raw data.
Treating failure as data. That's powerful.
It really is. Let's actually transition into our first vocabulary spotlight right now, because this specific word perfectly captures his mindset.
Okay, let's hear it.
Resilient. 2-second pause. Able to be strong and successful again after a failure or a difficult mistake. Resilient.
Resilient. I really like that we're defining it this way.
Me too.
Because often people think being resilient just means ignoring the pain and blindly pushing forward, like just taking a hit and acting tough.
Exactly, but that's not it at all.
Right. True resilience, in the way Altman demonstrated it, is highly analytical. If his goal was to understand the mechanics of business, then the failure of Looped wasn't a waste of time. It was just an incredibly expensive, highly effective education.
That's exactly how he saw it. He once famously noted in his essays that he fully expects to fail many times, but the mathematical reality of entrepreneurship is that getting it right once is enough.
Getting it right once is enough. Wow.
Yeah. He didn't view Looped as a permanent stain on his record. Instead, he extracted the lessons. He learned the harsh reality of market timing. He learned that you can't force consumers to adopt a behavior if the friction is too high, like trying to use a map on a clunky flip phone.
And he probably learned how to manage people, too.
Yes, he learned how to manage a team under extreme stress, which is invaluable.
You know, if we relate this to the everyday lives of our listeners, the principle is incredibly liberating.
Oh, for sure. How would you apply it?
Well, let's say you decide to start a side hustle. Maybe you want to launch a small online store selling your artwork, or you offer your services as a freelance translator.
Okay, yeah.
If nobody buys your product in the first 6 months, the natural human reaction is shame. You feel like you are a failure. But the resilient systems thinking approach is to ask, What data did I just collect?
Right. Like, is it the pricing?
Exactly. Maybe your pricing is wrong. Maybe you're marketing on the wrong platform. The failure of the project is just feedback. It's not a reflection of your worth.
That is a wonderful way to frame it. And for Sam, that feedback led directly to his next major evolution. Because he had navigated the startup world so intensely, he became deeply involved with an organization called Y Combinator.
Ah, Y Combinator.
Yes. Now, Y Combinator, or YC for short, is arguably the most famous and successful startup incubator in the world.
Let's actually break down that term for our listeners, because incubator is a very specific word.
Good idea.
Biologically, an incubator is a controlled environment that provides the exact right temperature and conditions for a premature baby to survive, or for an egg to hatch.
Right.
So in the business world, a startup incubator does the exact same thing for a fragile new company. It provides the money, the mentorship, and the shielded environment necessary for a tiny idea to grow strong enough to survive in the brutal free market.
Spot on. That's a great explanation. And Y Combinator has birthed absolute giants. I mean, companies like Airbnb, Stripe, Dropbox, and Reddit all started in this incubator.
That's a crazy track record.
It really is. Now, Sam had actually taken Loop through YC's first ever batch of companies years prior, so he knew the system from the inside out. He eventually began working for YC as a partner, advising other young founders.
So he went from being mentored to being the mentor.
Exactly. And he was so remarkably effective at this that in 2014, at the incredibly young age of 28, the founder of Y Combinator stepped down and named Sam Altman as the new president of the entire organization.
Wait, hold on. This is another point where I just have to stop and marvel at the mechanics of this situation.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
He's 28 years old. He is now the president of a legendary institution, which means he's managing, funding, and advising founders who are often in their 30s, 40s, or 50s.
Yep, he was the boss of people much older than him.
He is essentially the ultimate gatekeeper of Silicon Valley capital at 28. How does someone that young successfully wield that much power and effectively run an organization that sees thousands of applications a year?
He did it through our second and third core habits: ruthless prioritization and an obsession with talent.
Okay, let's look at the prioritization first.
When you are the president of YC, every single person wants 5 minutes of your time. Your inbox is flooded, the demands are endless. Our sources detail how Sam handled this. He simply ignored almost everything.
Ignored it. Right.
Yeah. He stripped his job down to only 3 key tasks.
And what were those 3 tasks?
He decided his only jobs were: 1, helping the most promising startups grow; 2, identifying and recruiting incredibly talented people; and 3, ensuring Y Combinator's internal operations were efficient.
And that's it.
That's it. If a meeting, an email, or a project did not directly serve one of those 3 exact goals, he completely ignored it.
Wow.
He didn't care if people thought he was aloof or unreachable. He understood that time is the only truly scarce resource.
I want to dig into this concept of ruthless prioritization because, well, it sounds great in a biography, but it's notoriously difficult for normal people to implement.
That's a fair point.
I mean, if I'm an intermediate English learner working a mid-level corporate job, I can't just tell my boss, hey, sorry, your email doesn't fit my 3 core priorities, so I'm ignoring it.
Yeah, you would definitely get fired.
Exactly. I'd be out of a job.
Yeah.
So how do we actually apply this without being the CEO of a company?
That is the perfect pushback. The way you apply this is by focusing on your sphere of control. Sphere of control. Okay.
You might not be able to ignore your boss, but you can control how you spend your energy outside of mandatory tasks. You can audit your daily routine.
Like how you spend your evenings.
Yes. Are you spending 2 hours a day scrolling through social media, reading news that makes you angry, but that you cannot change?
Guilty as charged sometimes.
Right. We all do it. But that is energy that is not serving your core goals. If your goal is to master English, manage your money, and get a promotion, you have to be resilient enough to say no to the hundreds of tiny distractions that steal your time. You prioritize the tasks that actually move the needle.
Okay, that makes a lot of practical sense. It's about auditing where your energy leaks are. Now, you mentioned his other major focus at YC was finding talent, or as he calls it, finding superstars.
Yes, superstars.
What exactly does that mean in his framework? Because again, every company says they want to hire good people. What did Altman do differently?
Sam has a very specific philosophy here. He famously stated, one superstar can replace 10 ordinary employees.
10 ordinary employees. Yeah. He wasn't looking for people who just had good resumes or went to good schools. He was looking for a specific type of high-leverage individual. He spent a disproportionate amount of his time, hours and hours every week, just networking, talking to people, and trying to identify these rare individuals.
I find the math of that quote fascinating. One superstar can replace 10 ordinary employees.
It sounds almost unfair, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, in a traditional factory setting, that's physically impossible. One worker on an assembly line cannot assemble 10 cars in the time it takes another worker to assemble one. The physical limit prevents it.
Exactly. Human bodies can only move so fast.
Right. But in the world of technology, code, and creative problem solving, the concept of leverage changes everything. A superstar software engineer can write an algorithm that automates the jobs of 100 people. A superstar marketer can write one campaign that reaches 1 million people.
That's the power of leverage.
So what traits was he actually looking for to identify these people?
According to his own writings, he looks for extreme adaptability and a high rate of learning. He wants people who take immense ownership of a problem.
So they don't just wait around to be told what to do?
Never. They don't wait for a manager to give them a step-by-step instruction manual. They look at the goal, figure out the roadblocks, and eliminate them autonomously.
That makes sense.
And here's the key. When Sam found these people, he didn't just hire them. He invested his own personal money into their companies. He realized that the greatest way to build his own wealth was to tie his financial destiny to the smartest, hardest working people he could find.
That is a profound insight. He wasn't just managing YC, he was building a massive network of brilliant allies.
Precisely.
And that network, and his reputation for understanding complex systems, is exactly what positioned him for the defining chapter of his life.
I think we've reached the point in the timeline where OpenAI enters the picture.
We definitely have.
Walk me through the origins, because the OpenAI we see today, the multi-billion-dollar giant, is not how it started. Not at all. It was completely different. Let's move to 2015. Sam Altman, along with Elon Musk and several other prominent tech figures, co-founded OpenAI. But here is the critical detail: it was incorporated as a nonprofit organization.
A nonprofit.
Yes. Their stated strict mission was to develop artificial general intelligence, which is AI that is as smart as a human. And their goal was to ensure that this technology benefits all of humanity, rather than just enriching a few shareholders.
A nonprofit structure for cutting-edge technology. That is an incredibly noble mission. It really is.
It is.
But from an operational standpoint, it seems, well, fundamentally flawed.
Ah, why do you say that?
To build advanced AI, you don't just need smart people. You need physical infrastructure. You need massive data centers, thousands of highly specialized computer chips called GPUs, and you have to pay millions of dollars in electricity bills just to run the models.
It is incredibly expensive.
Right. You are competing against companies like Google, who have endless billions to spend. How on earth can a nonprofit raise the billions of dollars necessary to buy that computing power without offering investors a financial return?
You have just perfectly articulated the exact existential crisis the company faced.
So they couldn't do it.
No, they couldn't. For the first few years, they relied heavily on donations from the wealthy founders, especially Elon Musk. But in 2018, everything fell apart.
What happened?
Musk had severe disagreements with the rest of the board about the direction and speed of the company's research. The tension peaked, and Musk ultimately walked away. And when he left, he took his massive financial pledges with him.
Oh, wow. So they were basically broke.
OpenAI was suddenly staring at an empty bank account. They were on the brink of complete collapse. They had the smartest engineers in the world, but no money to buy the computers needed to run their experiments.
This feels like a far more terrifying crisis than Loop failing.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if Loop fails, it's just a social app, whatever. But if OpenAI fails, the entire trajectory of artificial intelligence might be left entirely in the hands of massive, closed-off corporate monopolies.
The stakes were incredibly high.
So he's the CEO of a nonprofit that requires billions of dollars to survive, but legally cannot offer profit to investors. This is an unsolvable paradox. How did he navigate it?
He navigated it by utilizing our fourth core habit, immense adaptability and long-term structural thinking. Sam realized that being stubbornly attached to the pure nonprofit model would result in the death of the mission.
So he had to change the rules.
He had to invent a completely new corporate structure. He executed what is now known as the capped profit pivot. He created a for-profit company that existed entirely inside and under the control of the nonprofit board.
I need to break down the mechanics of this because it's a masterclass in financial engineering.
Let's do it.
In traditional capitalism, if I invest $10 million into a startup, my potential upside is infinite. If the company becomes the next Apple, my $10 million could turn into $10 billion. Right. Investors demand infinite upside to justify the extreme risk of startups. How does a capped profit model alter this dynamic?
It places a hard legal limit on the greed. Under Altman's new structure, investors were allowed to put money in and earn a return, but that return was strictly capped. Originally, it was capped at something like 100 times their investment.
Okay, so 100x,
Yeah. So if Microsoft invests $1 billion, the absolute maximum they can ever get back is $100 billion.
which is still a massive return.
Exactly. Now, 100x is still huge, which is why investors agreed to it. But the key is that any wealth generated beyond that cap does not belong to the investors. It flows directly back into the original nonprofit to be used for the benefit of humanity.
That is genuinely brilliant.
Isn't it?
He identified the core conflict. The nonprofit needs capitalist money, but the capitalist money threatens the nonprofit mission, and he designed a bespoke legal framework to force them to cooperate.
He perfectly balanced it.
He gave investors just enough upside to open their wallets while legally protecting the ultimate goal of the company. And because he was willing to adapt the structure, he convinced Microsoft to invest a staggering $10 billion, saving the company and giving them the compute power to build what would eventually become ChatGPT.
Exactly. His adaptability saved the company. But his long-term vision is what changed the world.
Right, the launch. Let's get into that.
Let's fast forward to late 2022. OpenAI had developed a powerful language model internally, but it wasn't a polished, perfect product yet. Many people inside the company and in the tech world argued that they should wait.
They were hesitant?
Very hesitant. They thought it was too risky, too unrefined, and that the public wasn't ready to interact with an AI that could sometimes hallucinate or give wrong answers.
I mean, releasing an unfinished product is a huge risk to your reputation. If it fails, the media will tear you apart. Why did he push to launch ChatGPT when it was still rough around the edges?
Because he understood a technical concept called reinforcement learning from human feedback.
That sounds complicated.
It just means he knew that the only way to make the AI truly safe and aligned with human values was to see how actual humans interacted with it in the real world.
Ah, so he needed real data.
Yes. He couldn't simulate human unpredictability in a closed lab. He needed millions of people testing it, breaking it, and correcting it. So he made the long-term play. He launched ChatGPT to the public.
And the result was arguably the most explosive product launch in the history of human commerce. The adoption rate was beyond anything we have ever seen.
The statistics still give me chills. ChatGPT acquired 5 million users in its first 5 days.
5 million in 5 days.
Let that sink in. 5 million people in less than a week. And within 2 months, it surpassed 100 million active users.
To put that in perspective for our listeners, let's look at historical adoption rates for transformative technologies. It took the telephone 75 years to reach 100 million users.
Bro.
It took mobile phones 16 years. It took the internet 7 years. It took Facebook over 4 years. ChatGPT reached 100 million users in 60 days. It is a level of scale that breaks our traditional understanding of growth.
It truly does. And the reason he was able to guide a company to that scale wasn't just his management of OpenAI. It was his deep underlying philosophy on how value and wealth actually compound over time.
Okay, this is where it gets really applicable for us.
Yes, this is where we shift from his business leadership to his personal financial philosophy, which is the exact lesson our listeners can use to transform their own lives. This actually brings us to our second vocabulary spotlight of the episode. Listen closely to how we define this.
Ready?
Compound growth. 2-second pause. When something grows slowly at first, but then grows much faster over a long period of time. Compound growth.
Compound growth. This is the secret engine of the universe.
It really is.
Most people think of growth linearly. If I walk 1 step a day, in 10 days I am 10 steps away. But compound growth is exponential. A classic analogy is biological cell division.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, think about it. 1 cell becomes 2, 2 become 4, 4 become 8. It feels slow at the beginning. Going from 16 to 32 isn't very impressive. But by the 30th division, you are suddenly at 1 billion.
It sneaks up on you.
Human brains are terrible at understanding this kind of mass intuitively. We want instant, linear results.
That biological analogy is excellent. Sam Altman is obsessed with this concept. He wrote, "Compound has magic power. Exponential growth is the key to creating wealth."
He really believes that.
He structures his entire life around avoiding things that only offer linear, short-term rewards and pouring his resources into things that will compound over decades.
How does this manifest in his actual investment portfolio? We know he invested in AI, which obviously compounded, But what else fits this extreme long-term framework?
The best example from our sources is his massive investment in a company called Helion Energy.
Helion Energy, what do they do?
Helion is working on nuclear fusion. Not nuclear fission, which is what current power plants use, but fusion, the exact same process that powers the sun.
The sun, wow.
If humans can achieve controlled nuclear fusion, it would provide the world with literally limitless, clean, zero-carbon energy.
But nuclear fusion is the ultimate deep tech gamble. Scientists have been joking for 50 years that fusion is always 30 years away.
It's true.
The upfront costs to build the containment magnets and the plasma reactors are astronomical, and there's a very real chance the physics simply won't cooperate at scale. It's not an app you can code in a weekend. It requires decades of patient capital.
Precisely. But Altman looked at the math. The short-term risk is huge, yes. It will take a long time to see any return. But if it works...
If it works, it changes humanity.
Exactly. The marginal cost of energy drops to near zero. The company's value wouldn't just double, it would compound exponentially as it powered the entire globe. He chose to invest his wealth into a slow-burn, massive impact project rather than trying to make a quick profit flipping real estate or day trading stocks. He trusts the magic of compounding.
Okay, this is fascinating on a macro level for a billionaire. But let's bring this right down to the micro level for the listener who is commuting to work or doing the dishes right now.
Let's do it.
How does an intermediate English learner who might be struggling to save a little extra money each month apply the principle of compound growth? I mean, they aren't investing in experimental nuclear reactors.
The principle is identical, only the scale changes. For our listeners, applying compound growth means shifting your focus away from quick fixes. Don't chase get-rich-quick crypto schemes or lottery tickets. Instead, apply compounding to your daily habits.
Give me an example.
Let's look at language learning. If you learn just 3 new vocabulary words a day, linearly, that doesn't seem like much. But language compounds.
How so?
Understanding those 3 words allows you to comprehend a new sentence, which allows you to read a new article, which exposes you to 10 more words in context. The knowledge networks together. After 2 years, your ability to speak English hasn't just grown by a few words, it has exploded exponentially, opening up entirely new career paths and networking opportunities.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it. Trusting the compounding process of education. You mentioned career paths, which leads us perfectly into the final and perhaps most important philosophical point we need to discuss today.
Yes.
Altman has a very specific view on the difference between having a job and actually building wealth, doesn't he?
Yes. This is the paradigm shift that ties everything together. And to discuss it, we need our third and final vocabulary spotlight.
Okay, I'm ready.
Investment, 2-second pause, putting money, time, or effort into something because you expect a benefit later. Investment.
Investment. Notice that we didn't just say putting money into something. We included time and effort. Investment is about allocating your current resources to buy a future advantage.
Exactly. And this brings us to the quote from Sam Altman that completely shatters how most of us were educated.
What did he say?
He said, "You don't get rich by working for a high salary. You get rich by owning something that grows in value, like a part of a company or an investment."
Let's stop and really unpack the heavy implications of that sentence.
Yeah.
You don't get rich by working for a high salary. That fundamentally contradicts the core message of the modern education system.
Completely contradicts it.
We are conditioned from childhood to believe that the path to financial freedom is getting good grades, going to a good university, and securing a job with a high yearly salary, like becoming a doctor, a lawyer, or a senior manager. Why is he saying that path doesn't lead to true wealth?
Because of the inescapable mathematics of time. When you work for a salary, you are participating in a direct trade. You give the company your hours, and they give you a predetermined amount of money.
The standard exchange.
The fatal flaw in this model is that time is universally finite. There are strictly 24 hours in a day. You need to sleep, eat, and rest.
Right, there's a limit.
Even if you are the highest paid lawyer in the city charging $1,000 an hour, you eventually run out of hours to sell. You hit a hard physical ceiling on your earning potential. Your income scales linearly, but it can never compound exponentially because you cannot create more time.
This is the concept of decoupling your time from your income. When you earn a salary, your income is firmly chained to your physical presence. If you stop working, if you get sick, if you want to take a month off to travel, or if you simply want to retire, the money immediately stops flowing.
Exactly. Now contrast that with the second half of his quote, you get rich by owning something that grows in value. This is the power of equity and assets.
Equity.
When you own a piece of a business, or you own intellectual property, or you own a portfolio of index funds, those assets are completely disconnected from your physical time.
They work when you aren't working.
Yes, a stock market index fund grows while you are sleeping. A software program you coded can be sold to 1 million people at the exact same time without you having to work 1 million hours. A piece of real estate appreciates in value whether you are looking at it or not.
So true wealth is about building leverage. When Sam Altman was advising companies at Y Combinator, he wasn't asking for a higher hourly consulting fee. He was asking for equity.
He wanted ownership.
He was asking for ownership in the companies. He knew that out of 100 companies, 90 might fail. But the 10 that succeeded would compound exponentially and work for him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Precisely. The shift in mindset is moving from how can I sell my time for more money to how can I use my time to acquire or build an asset.
That's a huge shift.
And again, this is highly practical for our listeners. If you are an employee right now, you might not be able to quit your job and start a tech company tomorrow, but you can start shifting your resources.
I'll go taking small steps.
Yes, you can take 10% of your salary and buy fractional shares of an index fund so that you slowly begin owning a piece of the global economy. Or you can spend your weekends building an asset like writing an ebook, starting a YouTube channel, or creating a digital template that people can buy online.
Even learning a new high-leverage skill is an asset. If you master English and then learn how to negotiate or learn basic coding, you are increasing your internal equity. You become the asset that compounds in value.
I love that. You become the asset.
This completely reframes the narrative we started with. Sam Altman's story isn't just about a lucky guy in Silicon Valley. It's a masterclass in treating failure as data, ruthlessly prioritizing your focus, adapting your structures when crises hit, and obsessively focusing on owning compounding assets rather than just earning a wage.
You summarize the mechanics beautifully. The journey from a college dropout with a failed social network to the architect of the AI revolution is entirely built on those replicable systems.
It really is.
And for our listeners, adopting even one of these mindsets, like becoming more resilient to failure or focusing on compound growth, can radically alter the trajectory of their lives. Now, speaking of applying these concepts to our daily routines, it is time for our regular segment where we check in on how we are actively building our own systems.
Sounds good.
James, what is one hobby you have that helps you stay disciplined with your money?
I've started tracking my spending in a small notebook. It was hard at first, but it really helps me see where my money goes.
And which hobby helps you meet like-minded people who love to learn?
Probably my weekend gardening group.
Yeah.
We talk more about patience and planning than our actual jobs.
That is wonderful. Now, I want to turn directly to you, our listener. Yes, you, the one listening on your commute or while you're at the gym or taking a walk. The whole point of learning English is to actually speak it.
Absolutely.
So I want you to practice your spoken English right now, out loud, wherever you are. I want you to answer those exact 2 questions. First, what is one hobby you have that helps you stay disciplined with your money? And second, which hobby helps you meet like-minded people who love to learn? I am going to give you a brief pause right now to answer out loud. Do not be shy. Give it a try. Go ahead.
We'll wait right here.
Excellent job. Remember, taking the words out of your head and actually speaking them into the room is a form of compound growth for your brain. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
It really is the ultimate way to build confidence. It transforms you from a passive consumer of information into an active participant.
Well, to summarize everything we've explored today, Sam Altman's journey teaches us that true success doesn't happen overnight, and it isn't just a product of luck. It comes from being incredibly resilient when things fail, extracting the data from those failures, and adapting your strategies.
Right, adjusting as you go.
It comes from ruthlessly prioritizing what truly matters and ignoring the noise. And most importantly for your financial future, it comes from shifting your mindset away from just trading your time for a salary and focusing instead on long-term compound growth by owning assets that increase in value.
What is one luxury or service that saves you time? Or maybe a side hustle you want to start? Tell us in the comments in simple English.
Is there a skill like public speaking or investing that you want to learn this year to improve your vision? Well, that is all the time we have for today. We will see you next time on Easy English, Relaxed English Conversations. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.